Hey to all the spooks out there, I'm Ange.
And I'm Amanda.
And this is Spine Chilling Chats.
Welcome.
We're so glad that you came. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. We're so glad that you found us.
Mm-hmm.
If this isn't your first time joining us, welcome back. We love hanging out with you guys every week.
Yes, we do.
Today, I'm covering a case of a killer couple. And to stick with our killer birthday months, we'll start with Raymond Fernandez, who was born in December. Raymond Martinez Fernandez was born December 17th, 1914 in Hawaii.
That's a new one. Hawaii?
Yeah, I don't think we've been to Hawaii yet.
Nope.
His parents were Spanish immigrants and very proud people. When Raymond was 3 years old, his family moved from Hawaii to Fairfield, Connecticut. So that's a big change.
Yeah.
Going from tropics to Connecticut. His father was very stern, and he was a handyman there. But he treated Raymond very poorly because he was frail and kind of weak as a child, and that didn't uphold to his father's ideals of what a boy should be like. Should be strong and
strapping. And
just
boys don't cry.
Yeah.
I hate that.
He kept Raymond out of school and forced him to work demeaning jobs instead when he got older. When he was 16, Raymond and two friends stole a couple of chickens but got caught. Chickens. That's what I would steal.
Out of everything in the whole wide world, chickens is the thing to steal.
And I'd steal a goat first.
Only if it's one of those fainting goats.
Those are funny. The boys' families were able to pay the bail and get them out of jail, but Raymond's father refused.
Of course he did.
So it resulted in Raymond being imprisoned for 2 months, which isn't very long, but still, I mean, at 16,
yeah,
like they didn't have juvie back then, like, and if
when
that's
was it?
Well, he was born in 1914, so plus 16.
So yeah, probably didn't have juvie back
1930. But that's still kind of like for his first offense. Like they're going to put you in prison or jail for 2 months at 16 for stealing a couple of chickens one time. 1932, he moved to Spain and worked on his uncle's farm. Another source stated that his whole family moved to Spain, where his father then became the mayor of Orgiva, which is a small town in the Granada province. But I only saw that stated in one source, so I'm not sure on its validity, but possibly just him or his whole family moved back to Spain. When Raymond was 20 years old, he moved to Gibraltar and got a job as an ice cream vendor. His weakling appearance by then had transformed into a good-looking, strong, muscular one. When he was 20, he married Encarnacion Robles, who was a local woman in the village of Orgiva. They got a house and went on to have 4 children together. He was well liked in town, his neighbors appreciating his kind, calm, and quiet nature.
That's how they all are. They're well liked and they have quiet, calm.
Well, no. Right now, he really is a nice guy.
Okay.
You just wait.
Okay.
You just wait.
Okay.
So he really turned out to be the total package. Just good looking, very nice, very calm and polite man. World War II began, and like many others at the time, he served with Spain's Merchant Marine. He also helped British intelligence agencies, spying for them and earning him certain notoriety in the intelligence field. The Defense Security Office in Gibraltar once said that he, and this is a quote, was entirely loyal to the Allied cause and carried out his duties, which were sometimes difficult and dangerous, extremely well. So he's good looking, he's polite, he's charming, And he's working to protect others.
He turned out to be the manly man that his dad didn't think he would be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In December of 1945, Raymond sailed to the United States, abandoning his wife and children to look for work. Unfortunately, on that trip, he had a life-changing accident. A steel hatch fell on top of his head, fracturing his skull and damaging his frontal lobe, which is responsible for regulating the learning, reasoning, and logical segments of brain function.
I had a guy who had that, remember?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He spent 3 whole months in a hospital for his injuries. His personality dramatically changed after this accident. He became impulsive and unpredictable. He also became addicted to sex. And he lost his hair. So now he's bald. I don't know if it was from his accident, getting the scar on his head, or if it's just because he's now in his mid-20s and it's starting to fall out. Maybe he was just always going to be bald.
Right.
Now bald and plagued with serious headaches, he was a shadow of the man he had once been. He became a petty criminal and wore a cheap black toupee to hide his bald head. After being discharged from the hospital in 1946, he made his way to Mobile, Alabama, aboard a ship, where he got charged with robbery after stealing a large quantity of clothing and other items from the ship's storeroom that were clearly marked through customs. When he tried to pass through customs, he was immediately arrested. He had no excuse for his actions, and when he was asked why he committed the theft, he said, "I don't know. I can't think. I can't say why I did it. I just saw other men putting a towel or two in their bags, so I thought I'd do the same. Only I just couldn't seem to stop." Raymond did plead guilty, but argued that he couldn't resist taking that clothing. He was sentenced to 1 year in a prison in Tallahassee, Florida. This is where he met his Haitian cellmate, who taught him about voodoo, hypnotism, and black magic. When Raymond was released from prison and moved to Brooklyn to live with his sister, his relatives were shocked by his appearance, which had changed dramatically since the accident. Noticing his bald head, where before he had an abundance of rich dark hair, the scar from the accident was plainly visible on top of his head. Raymond would lock himself in his room for days at a time and suffered painful headaches. He joined a local Lonely Hearts Club called the Mother Denine's Friendly Club. He wrote to women in the club and was very successful. He convinced himself that he had a power over women that could turn them into his sexual slaves. He would smooge them with charm, and once he gained their trust, he'd steal their money and disappear. Because of how he met these women, they were too embarrassed to get police involved. He was able to do this over and over again without getting into trouble, since none of his victims filed a police report.
So back to his hair, did he just give up wearing the toupee?
No, I think he wore it for a while. But I'm sure he, like, around his family, he probably had times when he took it off, you know.
Yeah.
In 1947, he started writing to and eventually met a recently divorced cook, Jane Thompson, through the Lonely Hearts Club. She ran a New York City boarding house with her mom. He became a tenant of theirs. Raymond and Jane started a relationship together, even though he was legally still married to his wife, Encarnacion. They bought cruise ship tickets with Jane's money and took a trip to Spain. For several weeks, they traveled together and booked hotel rooms as man and wife. They dined and took sightseeing trips across the Spanish countryside. They visited Madrid, Granada, Malaga, or Malaysia. I don't know.
Malaysia?
No, it's not Malaysia.
Oh.
and La Linea de la Concepcion on the Gibraltar border. Raymond boldly introduced his girlfriend to his wife and children.
Oh.
That's a dick move.
Wow.
Yeah, that's...
Meanwhile, I'm dating a single dad and I still haven't met his daughter.
Well, you can't go public yet, so...
I can.
I thought it wasn't...
It is, but it's... I can, but I'm not going to. Yet. Just in case.
Raymond and Jane got into an argument on November 7th, and she threatened to return to the U.S. alone. She was found dead in her hotel room the next morning. Coincidence? I think not. They stated that the cause of death was a heart attack triggered by gastroenteritis. Her body was buried without an autopsy being performed. Being the sleazeball he is now, Raymond returned to New York to show Jane's mother a forged will, of course, that named Raymond as her only heir, gaining him access to her apartment and belongings.
Of course.
While all of this was going down, he continued to write dozens of other women in the Lonely Hearts Club, one of which was Martha Beck. Dun dun dun!
This is going to get interesting.
Martha Jewel Seabrook was born in Milton, Florida on May 6, 1920. Every source I read seemed to focus on the fact that she was obese due to a glandular problem. A glandular.
Yeah.
Glandular, like for her glands. I'm a big girl myself, so I found this a little rude that they spent so much time focusing on that. And like every source, it was because she was fat, because she was so large, the chair creaked, because of this, she's so fat. You know, like everything they mentioned about her was because of her weight. And I get it that this is like the 1940s or whatever, and most people were tiny.
Barbies.
But really, that's what we're going to focus on? Like, tell me after you've listened to this whole story, if that's the main takeaway you would take from this about her.
Okay.
So
I'm ready.
Apparently, she went through puberty early due to the glandular problem. Martha claimed to have been raped by her brother and beaten by her mother as a child. As a young teenager, she ran away to her uncle's house in a nearby town with her friend Truman Capote, who was just 10 years old at the time. So when they said young teen, I'm assuming maybe like 12, 13. Because you're not going to be like 15 and hanging out with a 10-year-old.
Oh. Yeah.
So I'm assuming she's a young teen.
That name sounded familiar, so I'm looking it up real quick.
Oh, Truman Capote?
Yeah, that's what I thought. He's a novelist, playwright, screenwriter, actor. And he did Breakfast at Tiffany's and In Cold Blood.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I knew it sounded familiar.
So she was friends with him when he was a little boy.
When he was a little boy. Okay.
They were found and returned home just a day later. After finishing school, Martha studied nursing but had trouble finding a job. Here is where everybody said it was because of her weight.
Okay.
She initially became an undertaker's assistant and prepared female bodies for burial. She soon quit that job and moved to California, where she worked in the United States Army Hospital as a nurse. While living in California, she spent her nights bar hopping, picking up soldiers. She was expecting commitments from them, but they were just looking for a good time. She eventually did become pregnant by a one-night stand with a soldier, but the father of the baby refused to marry her. He actually tried committing suicide by jumping in the California Bay, but luckily he failed. Martha never saw him again. Single and pregnant at a time when a social stigma existed concerning out-of-wedlock children. Martha returned to Florida, telling those that the baby's father had died in combat, which I would have done the same, if it was, that frowned upon. The whole town mourned her loss with her, and the story was even published in the local newspaper. In 1944, Martha gave birth to a little girl who she named Willa Dean, which I like that.
I like that too.
Willa Dean. Shortly after Willa was born, she became pregnant again by a Pensacola bus driver named Alfred Beck. He married her but divorced only 6 months later. She gave birth to a son. She named him Anthony Beck. She found herself unemployed and a single mother of 2 small children. She escaped her reality by fantasizing what her life could be like, spending her time reading romance magazines and novels, watching romance movies. She was desperate to find love and hold on to it. Which, remember, her self-esteem is pretty shit right now, too, since, she's been all her life told she's fat. She got pregnant by a dude. Instead of wanting to be with her, he tries to kill himself. And now she got pregnant again, got married, but he divorced her after 6 months. So she has no self-esteem. She was desperate to find love and hold on to it. In 1946, she got a job at Pensacola Hospital for Children. She placed a Lonely Hearts ad in 1947, which Raymond Fernandez from West 139th Street, New York City, responded. He said he was a successful and well-respected businessman who made his fortune in the import and export trade. The words were written in an elaborate manner, extremely polite, and seemed sincere. He wrote that he was a Spaniard who had recently left his country to come to America for better business opportunities. He now lived alone, and this is a quote, "Here in this apartment much too large for a bachelor, but I hope someday to share it with a wife." Raymond wrote that he knew Martha was a nurse, and he wrote to her because, and this is another quote, "I know you have a full heart with a great capacity for comfort and love." So he's really sneering and thick, yeah. It was too much for the desperate Martha. She carried the letter with her everywhere she went and read it at every opportunity, which that breaks my heart. Like, she thinks, oh my gosh, this guy, he thinks I'm wonderful. The first time anyone showed me any sort of love and affection.
Right.
She couldn't believe how well he wrote and expressed himself. She immediately bought expensive stationery and began a 2-week correspondence that included a dozen letters and exchange of photographs. The photos were a little bit of a problem. Of course, Martha didn't want to scare off Raymond with a full frontal view of her, with her being self-conscious of her size. Instead, she sent him a group photo of all the nurses at the hospital in which she was partially hidden behind a row of friends. In the accompanying letter, she wrote, "It doesn't do me justice." Size and appearance didn't matter to Raymond Fernandez, though. By this time, he had already defrauded, tricked, deceived, and stole from dozens of women across the country. All he cared about was how much money they had. When he learned that Martha was a nurse, he assumed that she had money or a house or something of value. He knew he would have to develop a relationship by mail and maybe a telephone call or two before arranging a face-to-face meeting. He had to build trust and inspire a level of sexual anticipation in his victims. Through repeated acts of trial and error, he built up a standard routine, and he followed that script almost in every instance right up to the end. After a few letters back and forth, Raymond performed the necessary step of asking Martha for a lock of her hair. With this lock of hair, he was able to perform his voodoo ritual, which he believed would make Martha unable to resist his sexual charms. He followed directions from a book written by William Seabrook called Magic Island, a Bible of voodoo and secret spells. He considered it a good omen that his favorite author and his latest victim shared the same name, with Martha's maiden name being Seabrook. Martha was thrilled that a man, my voice cracks, talking.
Puberty.
Yeah, I'm going through it. Martha was thrilled that a man would ask for a lock of her hair. That had never happened before. She happily sent a lock of her hair with the very next letter and spritzed it with perfume. She thought that just maybe she found her true love. After Raymond built up enough anticipation with Martha, he performed his voodoo ritual. He decided that the time had come for a meeting. He arranged to take a train down to Florida and for Martha to meet him at the station. Of course, Martha, realizing she was about to confront the lies she had told about herself, was extremely nervous. But her curiosity and desire quickly overcame whatever fears she may have had. On December 28th, 1947, he arrived in Pensacola. He stayed for a short time with her. He was anxious to learn of her assets in order to determine if she was worth the effort. They spent the next day and night together and had sex numerous times. Martha swore her undying love and wanted him to stay in Florida to marry her. But Raymond did not want marriage. He wanted to continue his work. She told everyone that they were engaged to be married. After 2 days together, Raymond realized that Martha was poorer than she had let him on in her letters, and he returned to New York after making an excuse to leave. Martha wrote several romantic letters to Raymond, to which he replied that she had misunderstood his intentions and that they wouldn't be seeing one another again. In response, Martha wrote Raymond that she was going to kill herself with an oven. Like she gonna crawl in Hansel and Gretel style?
Or it's a gas oven.
Oh, maybe. Like she's gonna blow herself up?
Or she's just going to inhale the gas. Oh, just turn the gas on. Not light it. Turn the gas on and just let the gas go.
Uh-huh. I was voting for Hansel and Gretel style.
I mean, that could happen
That's
too.
an option.
It is.
The letter had the desired effect, and he invited Martha to New York. Although the residents conceded Martha a 2-week leave, she later found that she had been fired without explanation from her job. On January 18th, 1948, Martha surprised Raymond by showing up at the boarding house's door with her 2 children. When Raymond said he could not have children in the house, she abandoned both kids on January 25th, 1948 at a Salvation Army. Willa Dean was eventually adopted. Her name was changed to Carmen. So...
That's sad.
Yeah.
For a guy.
Yeah, so she picked penis over her children. And he didn't even really want her. Like, it was
a pity invite.
A pity invite, yeah. Martha also threw Jane's mother out, remember, because he was living in Jane's apartment or boarding house after he killed Jane, or after Jane died of a heart attack. So she kicked Jane's mom out. In a last attempt to make Martha leave, he confessed that he was a con artist and that his life was based on ripping off women from Lonely Hearts clubs.
I mean, at least he was honest about that.
Yeah, at least he eventually told her. However, Martha, desperate for love of any kind, chose to stay and become his accomplice. On February 28th, Raymond drove to Fairfax, Virginia, which is where Robbie grew up.
Okay.
Where he married retired school teacher Esther Heen and brought her to New York. Martha refused to leave him alone and accompanied him on the trip, forcing him to introduce her as his sister-in-law. Esther subsequently got into several arguments with Raymond, who wanted her to write her insurance policies and retirement pension under his name. That's not a red flag.
Not at all.
Like, how dumb does he think these women are? Like, I guess they are. Some of them are not really catching the signs there.
Right.
After hearing of Jane's death from other tenants, she left the city and began proceedings to recover her car and the $300 that Raymond had conned from her already. Simultaneously, pressured by a paternity claim from a New York woman, Raymond and Martha sold the house and traveled to Green Forest, Arkansas, where they met yet another member of the Lonely Hearts Club, Myrtle Young. Raymond and Myrtle married in Cook County, Illinois on August 14th, and the trio traveled to a modest rooming house in Chicago for the honeymoon. Yes, all three of them. Because who wouldn't want their sister to come on their honeymoon with them?
Right.
After 3 days, an argument broke out because of Raymond's unwillingness to consummate their marriage, and Myrtle threatened to leave if Martha didn't. Myrtle ingested, or was forced to ingest, a jar of barbiturates and was placed on a bus to Arkansas after the killer pair took $4,000 from her. Which that's a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a lot of money to me now, but
right. But back then
it was a large amount. During the trip, Myrtle suffered a brain hemorrhage and died at a hospital. Around Christmas of 1949, Raymond wrote to a 66-year-old religious widow from Albany, New York named Janet Fay. He claimed that his name was Charles Martin and that he shared her religious beliefs. On January 1st, Raymond and Martha went to Janet's house, where he introduced Martha as his sister and claimed that they had lost their wallets. The next day, Janet accepted Raymond's marriage proposal and withdrew $2,500 from her bank account. The three then left for an apartment in Long Island, and Janet was convinced to withdraw another $3,500. As they were still not married, Janet slept with Martha instead of Charles and asked her several questions about Charles's childhood, which Martha refused to answer. Janet became angry and told Martha that she would not live with the couple after the marriage. Martha later testified she blacked out and couldn't remember what happened. Her quote was, "The next I knew, the defendant Fernandez had me by the shoulders and was shaking me," she said. Janet Fay's body lay at Martha's feet, bleeding profusely from a severe head wound. She was bludgeoned into unconsciousness with a ball-peen hammer and then garroted using a scarf as a tourniquet around her neck. Martha said that immediately after killing, she was in some type of trance. Raymond and Martha cleaned up the room, wrapped the body in towels and sheets, and pushed it into the closet. Then they went to sleep. The next day...
I mean, nothing like a good night's sleep.
With a dead body in your closet?
It must have been exhausting.
You know, I imagine it does take a lot out of one. You know?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, guys. Yawning. It's late.
It's been a long weekend.
Yeah, it's been Sunday for 3 days.
I've actually worked really hard all weekend.
Really?
Yeah.
What'd you do? What do you mean?
But okay.
Oh, like just in general, like
cleaning my house. Like
yeah.
I scrubbed my stove, made the turkey stock, and I canned that. I cleaned the house for Anna to come over Friday, so I cleaned the bathroom really good. Like, I was busy.
Yeah, sounds busy.
I didn't just chill, and then I had to write this.
I just kind of chilled. I think that's why it felt like it went on forever. Like all day Saturday, I kept saying, "Man, I don't want to go back to work tomorrow," or "Man, tomorrow this, tomorrow that," and it was only going to be Sunday, and I'm like, "Fuck, it's only Sunday." Like I love my time off, but like after so many days, it's like, all right, I'm ready to go back. I can't. I'm just bored.
I was not bored. I was busy.
Yeah.
The next day, they bought a large trunk and dumped the body inside. They drove over to Raymond's sister's house, where they convinced her to store the trunk in her basement for the time being. 11 days later, on January 15th, Raymond retrieved the trunk from his sister's house and buried it in the cellar of a rented house. Could you did his sister not notice the smell?
That's what I was thinking.
Like, it had to have started smelling by then. Because, if you've ever had like a mouse in your house and it died, like you can smell that. Like, and that's just that big. That's not a human being.
And human beings start decomposing quick.
Yeah.
Ugh.
That's weird. Raymond then covered up the grave with cement. For the next week, they cashed Janet Faye's checks and typed letters to her family saying, and this is a quote, "I am all excited and having the time of my life. I never felt as happy before. I soon will be Mrs. Martin and will go to Florida." They signed the letters Janet L. Faye. But here they made a mistake.
Oh.
Janet didn't own a typewriter and didn't know how to type. Her family immediately notified the police. The same day of Janet's murder, Raymond received a letter from Delphine Downing. She was a 28-year-old widow from Grand Rapids, Michigan, who had a 2-year-old daughter named Raynell. And then they made their way to Grand Rapids, Byron Center Road in Wyoming Township, which is a suburb of Grand Rapids. And they escaped any ramification of Janet Faye's family. They met and stayed with their next victim, Delphine Downing. This time, Martha was introduced again as Raymond's sister-in-law, but he slept several times with Delphine. Martha could hardly hide her jealousy from Delphine. On February 27th, one version of the story is that Martha offered Delphine some pills that she claimed were abortifacients. So I'm assuming perhaps Delphine thought she was pregnant, but I didn't see that anywhere that she thought she was. But why else would she want to take that?
Right.
But they were actually sleeping pills. So when she fell unconscious, they rolled a sheet around her head and Raymond shot her with her ex-husband's revolver. The second version is that Delphine became agitated and Raymond gave her sleeping pills to calm her. The daughter witnessed Delphine's resulting stupor and began to cry, which irritated Martha. Panicked, Martha strangled the child but didn't kill her. Raymond thought Delphine would become suspicious if she saw her bruised daughter, so he shot the unconscious woman. So either Martha drugged her and then Raymond shot her, or Raymond drugged her and then shot her. So it's not clear which story is true. Delphine was then buried in cement inside the house's basement. With Delphine out of the way, Martha and Raymond had free rein to cash her checks and loot her home. Over the next 2 days, they considered different fates for Delphine's 2-year-old daughter. Keeping her was not an option because she rejected them and refused to eat, and they thought that leaving her in an orphanage would raise suspicions. Finally, Raymond told Martha to kill the child. and she drowned her in a basin. Afterward, they buried her with her mother. The same day, 2 concerned neighbors rang the door. Raymond and Martha talked to them and assumed they smoothed things over, so much so that they thought it was a good idea to go see a movie. Upon their return, they were arrested by police. Raymond and Martha made full confessions that differed in a few details. The buried bodies were exhumed, and the Spanish police was alerted to reopen the 1947 case as a murder. Because Michigan had abolished the death penalty in the 19th century, the state pressed no charges and extradited the couple to New York, where they faced 1 charge of first-degree murder for the death of Janet Fay. In June, they declared themselves not guilty by reason of insanity, but after a 44-day trial, they were found guilty and were sentenced to die in the electric chair. While in jail, Raymond told the doctors that he had sincere affection and a great consideration for Martha, but he was unsure of loving her. The doctors told Martha that Raymond never loved her and that he was infected with syphilis, which crushed Martha. While in custody, Martha also exhorted police to clamp down on Lonely Hearts Club, claiming that they were frauds. Coincidentally or not, the Mother Denine's Friendly Club was closed under charges of fraud, but it reopened immediately with a different name and the same fee of $5. The case of Raymond Fernandez and Martha Beck inspired several later movies like The Honeymoon Killers in 1970, Deep Crimson in 1996, and Lonely Hearts in 2006. Both were found guilty in a sensational trial with a circus-like atmosphere of first-degree murder and sentenced to death by electric chair. Martha's last breakfast consisted of ham, eggs, and coffee. Her last requested meal was fried chicken, no wings, French fries, and lettuce and tomato salad. Raymond's last meal included an onion omelet, French fries, chocolate, and a Cuban cigar. He was especially nervous and confided to prison guards that he may not hold up under the pressure. As the hour grew near, Martha sent Raymond a note professing her undying love. The news brought to me, this is a quote. The news brought to me that Martha loves me is the best I've had in years. Now I'm ready to die, he said. So tonight I'll die like a man, end quote.
So the best news was that he realized Martha loved him, or
Yeah.
like she's been in love with him and she's been telling him that.
Well, when they were
day
in prison, they had a little squabble because Raymond had told reporters that he didn't really love her and that he made his full confession trying to protect her, so pretty much putting the blame all on her, and she didn't appreciate that either. At 11:00 p.m., the procedure began. First, 2 other convicts, John King, 22, and Richard Power, 22, from Queens, New York, were taken from their cells and marched over to the pale green death chamber. They were executed for the senseless murder of an airline clerk in 1950. After their deaths, Raymond was removed from his cell and taken to the same cold, barren room. It was tradition at Sing Sing prison that the weakest prisoner should go first. I want to shout it out, I love Martha. What do the public know about love? He said. When the time came, Raymond became paralyzed with fear, like the brave man he is.
Oh, yeah.
And he had to be carried into the chair by the guards. Minutes later, Martha was brought into the dreaded room on her own volition. Escorted by the matrons, she sat down into the creaking chair carefully. The matrons applied the straps to her body. Her mouth formed the words, "So long," but no sound escaped her lips. At 11:24, she was dead. It was the first quadruple execution since 1947. The executioner, Joseph Francel of Cairo, New York, was paid $150 per person for his expertise.
So they said the weaker inmates go first?
Yeah.
And he went before Martha?
Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah. Her last final statement before she was taken to the chamber was, and this is a quote, "What does it matter who is to blame? My story is a love story, but only those tortured with love can understand what I mean. I was pictured as a fat, unfeeling woman. I am not unfeeling, stupid, or moronic. In the history of the world, how many crimes have been attributed to love?" End quote. Her remains were transported back to her hometown, where she rests in an unmarked grave. At the time of her death, she was survived by her mother, her ex-husband, Alfred Beck, her 2 children, Carmen, whose birth name was Willadine, who was 7 at the time, and Anthony, her son, who was 6 at the time, 1 brother, and 3 sisters. Students of the case believe that Janet, Delphine, and Renelle weren't the pair's only victims, as some of Raymond's previous marks had died under suspicious circumstances, and that as many as 17 other victims may exist. Regardless of whether they killed 3 people or 20, no one can dispute the fact that Raymond Fernandez and Martha Beck were cold-blooded killers. And that is a story of the Lonely Hearts Club Killers.
I didn't know there was movies about them.
Yeah, I haven't seen any of those. I'll have to check them out.
Me too. Me too.
So what do you think? Was it about her being fat?
No.
Like, I don't understand why there was such a focus.
Ounce of it was...
Yeah.
I guess in a way
Because
I could see it because of self-esteem. So
Yeah.
she latched on to the only guy that's shown her any kind of attention.
Yeah.
That could be a subconscious, self-conscious type of thing that big people
Like
do.
coping mechanism.
Yeah. Like they feel so unwanted and they've been told their whole lives and this and that they kind of latch on to anybody
who shows them any sort of attention or affection.
So I guess I could see that, but no, I don't think her being fat had anything to do with it.
Yeah. It just irritated me. Mostly because I'm bigger, you know. I found love, okay?
And they don't kill anybody.
Yeah. That was not yet. You know, there's still time.
Yeah.
I'm only 37. Some people don't even start their killing careers till later on.
Right. So there's time.
I'm doing my research now.
So, in the case of you killing somebody, what you're saying is I need to delete everything off of everything.
Yes, you are responsible.
Burn
you are responsible for
everything.
taking care of the cleanup afterwards.
Okay. Got it. At least I know my role.
Yes.
So, guys, that's it. We could do something. We could maybe go live on Facebook, but we have these, which are Murder at the Eiffel Tower. It's a murder mystery case.
And Murder in Miami.
And we got to find out who the killers are, and it's a game. So we'll be putting our killer knowledge and our detective skills and see if we can find out who the killer is. So we don't know yet. Let us know if you want us to do this on our podcast. If you want us to go live on Facebook so you guys can help and interact. If you want us just to play the game and just record it. If you don't want us to do it at all, just let us know. Because I think it'll be fun.
Yeah. This is neato.
So.
Fun.
Yes.
All right. Well, we hope that you guys keep coming back. Check us out on our website, which is www.spine-chillingchatspodcast.com. You can shoot us an email there to give us any of your stories with glitches in the matrix, paranormal activity, fucking fairies, just really any suggestions for killers you'd like us to cover, alien abduction, any of that. Send us an email through there, or you can email us directly at spinechillingchatspodcast@gmail.com, and that does not have a hyphen. Also on our website, we have a link to our merch store. There's a lot of cool stuff on there, so check it out. We have our bios on there, our Halloween photo shoot in the graveyard.
Past episodes.
Yep, links to other episodes. So check it out. Check us out.
Write us, send us something, let us know how we're doing.
You can find us on Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Please comment so we know that you guys are listening, you're enjoying it, or you're not enjoying it. Let us know what we need to change.
Let us know. Yeah. Like, we want to hear from you guys. We want to know what you're thinking. We want to know what we need help with, if we don't need help, if we're doing fine, if we're doing great, if we're not doing so well. Like, let us know. In a nice, polite manner, though. Because some of us are I am sensitive and I will cry. And I will not. I'll just be like, you guys are assholes, but thanks for the comment.
What else?
I think that's it.
No, there's something else I wanted to... I don't remember.
I
don't remember. Oh, well. Well, we hope you guys come back. Oh, like, subscribe, share with your friends, your family, help us grow our fan base so we can keep doing this.
Because we enjoy it a lot.
And it gets sad when the numbers aren't going up. It makes me want to cry. We hope you guys enjoy this. We hope you come back, and we hope you keep it spooky. Bye, guys.
Bye.